Amanda Bynes didn't suddenly spiral, but if you look closely at the timeline of her life, something strange appears. The moments people call her downfall are actually the first moments that she was living without a system controlling her. And that raises a disturbing question. What if her collapse wasn't actually her fault or her problem? What if the system that built her was? This isn't a gossip story. This is a psychological one. Before the headlines, before the tweets, before the word spiral ever entered the chat, like the young people say, there was just a kid. Amanda Bynes was born April 3rd, 1986. She was raised in Thousand Oaks, California, a quiet suburb outside of Los Angeles. Not Hollywood glamorous, suburban, structured, quiet. And her home life matters. Her father, Rick Bynes, was a dentist, practical, disciplined, but deeply funny. Comedy wasn't just something he enjoyed, it was something that he shared with his entire family, including Amanda. He helped her write jokes and encouraged her sense of humor. He never laughed at her, always with her. And her mother, Lynn Bynes, recognized very early that Amanda had something different. She wasn't just playful, she was performative. She understood comedic timing, and that's a big deal for a kid. That takes a lot of intelligence. Amanda grew up in a mixed faith household, Catholic and Jewish. Her parents introduced her to both traditions and then took a step back. They allowed her to choose her own path later on in life. Amanda described herself as spiritual, thoughtful, and curious. And this matters because it tells us something very important. Amanda wasn't raised chaotically. She wasn't a neglected child. Her parents very clearly loved her very much. She was raised, contained, strict even, by her own admission.
We're very strict. In a good way, though. My parents never let me go to the mall alone or with friends. I had to go with my parents.
She was not allowed to roam malls with friends. Boyfriends were actively discouraged. And even though she became this huge, world-renowned actress and child star, independence came slowly.
You are your parents, and I don't know, I'm so grateful for them. I want to be with them forever, so I'm just enjoying being with them.
But within those boundaries, something else grew. Performance. Comedy became her outlet. By 7 years old, Amanda was already working. Commercials, theatre, comedy clubs. Not because she was forced, but because the adults around her recognized that she had something special. A star power, a real talent for comedy, for entertainment. She was such a funny little kid.
Maybe I should have skipped that 13th candy bar.
And that was recognized as something rare. And so at 10, her father enrolled her in a comedy camp, the Laugh Factory. Now imagine 10 years old, standing on a comedy stage, learning how to read a room. In order to make people laugh, you have to know how to read a room. She wasn't just telling jokes, she was learning how to regulate energy, how to recover when a joke didn't land, and how to win people over. And these are skills that most adults never fully learn how to embody. And she was doing it at 10 years old. 7 years old. It was Amanda's big break. However, a Nickelodeon producer saw her performance and they were enamored. And just like that, her life changed overnight. And she was cast on Nickelodeon's show, All That. A kids show that was kind of like SNL, like sketch comedy, but for kids. I never watched it, but I watched not the reruns, I watched for the video. I watched during research, and I wish I had watched it when I was a kid. From the outside to the rest of the world, to all the other kids. It looked like a dream. A gifted child gets discovered. She's funny, confident, adored.
Well, Tracy, here's a little advice. Turn the stinking sandwich over!
And America, the whole world gets to watch her on screen. But within, something else was happening, something else was developing. Her identity was forming under constant observation. And that detail matters much more than it might seem, because this is where many of the patterns that we later saw with Amanda, this is where they were forming. By her early teens, 13 years old, Amanda wasn't just on the show, she was the show. Her skill, when she was on all that, she stole the show. She stole the show, so of course they had to give her own show, called The Amanda Bynes Show. Her name, her face, her voice, her talent. It was all about her. Every single week. Live studio audiences. Slapstick comedy. Sketch after sketch. Costumes. Characters. Accents. 13 years old. She wasn't just acting, she was elastic, a shapeshifter. She could transform into any role they asked of her. Just like that. 1 minute a child, the next playing an exaggerated adult stereotype. And the detail that people often miss about this time period is that Amanda was never cast as the pretty girl. She was always cast as goofy, funny, entertaining, but never pretty. Always harmless, always good. And that persona followed her everywhere as she continued to grow and develop within her career. Awards came early, the Kids' Choice Awards, praise from critics, press interviews. Adults loved to say things like, oh, she's so mature for her age. She's such a professional. She's a natural. But praise like that to a child has a cost. Because when a child is rewarded for not needing anything, they learn not to ask. Amanda learned to be polite, poised, gracious, and funny on command. She learned how to charm talk show hosts twice her age.
Here,
Hi.
I drew you a picture.
You drew this?
Yeah.
Wow.
How to redirect awkward moments and how to laugh through discomfort. She learned how to be liked. And it worked. By her late teens, she did what very few child stars managed to do. She transitioned cleanly. Films, sitcoms, blockbusters, critics praising her comedic intelligence, while at the same time undermining her actual intelligence. But on paper, this looked like the best case scenario. She had no scandals, no arrests, no rehab, and no rebellion. She was just a bright, bubbly girl next door, growing in her career. She just looked like a successful, young, talented actress with the whole world at her fingertips. That's what it looked like. But underneath it, something quieter was forming. A self that existed mostly in performance. A sense of worth tied to output. And an identity that never had a chance to ever be private. Amanda Bynes, she belonged to the world. She was a product for people to consume. The version of Amanda that audiences loved, the goofy, harmless kid, that wasn't fake. But it also wasn't the whole story. To the audience, Amanda Bynes was the safe one, the goofy one, the polite one, the one your parents trusted. If you wanted to watch Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan, you had to do it quietly. But you could definitely watch She's the Man with Amanda Bynes, because she's so sweet and lovely and kid appropriate. She wasn't in the tabloids, she wasn't getting arrested, she wasn't acting out. And that contrast, it mattered very, very much. Because the media always needs a comparison. On one side you had chaos, and on the other side you had control. And Amanda was constantly framed as the complete opposite of girls like Lindsay Lohan. Where Lindsay, the teenager, was presented as wild, rebellious, carefree, messy, Amanda was framed as good, palatable, the girl next door, almost sexless. And that wasn't accidental. As I said, the media loves comparison and the industry loves binaries. Good girl versus bad girl, responsible versus reckless, role model versus cautionary tale. And Amanda Bynes became the gold standard. She was described as so professional, so grounded, so mature, so responsible, so grateful. But you have to listen carefully to that language. When people say that a child is mature for her age, what they really mean is that she doesn't inconvenience adults. Amanda never challenged interviewers. She laughed at the jokes that were made about her, and she always handled discomfort so gracefully. On talk shows, she leaned forward. She complimented hosts. She was engaged. She gave direct eye contact. She made them feel special and was excellent at redirecting awkward moments. She performed emotional labor flawlessly, and the audiences loved it because from the outside, it looked like happiness. It looked like gratitude. It looked like someone who was humble and grounded, even despite all of her massive, incredible success.
Wonderful. I just love being at home. When I'm working all day, I don't really want to go out.
We saw a bubbly kid with perfect timing, who grew into a teenager who never seemed rebellious, who grew into a young woman who smiled through everything. What we didn't see was the pressure to stay the same. Most teenagers get to explore privately. They can be awkward. They can change identities. They're allowed to grow and shift and then move on without anyone remembering or holding it against them for the rest of their life. But Amanda didn't get that. Every phase was archived. Every mistake she made was permanent, and every version of her belonged to the public. She once said in an interview that she was embarrassed knowing that her awkward childhood moments were available for millions across the globe to rewatch, always available.
Forever, for the rest of my life, I think that will be running. It's so embarrassing because I was in such an awkward stage of my life, and so
And that's not a throwaway comment. That's a teenager who understands that she's always under surveillance. When you grow up like that, something subtle happens. You stop asking, who am I becoming? And you start thinking, who do they want me to be? Who do they want me to stay? What do they need me to be? How do I appease them and keep them happy? So Amanda stayed, goofy, sweet, childlike, even when she was clearly growing up. And this is where the narrative becomes dangerous. I'm sorry if you can hear my neighbours, they're so fucking loud and it's so late. I don't know why they're up doing the absolute most when they don't sleep. Anyway, because when someone is rewarded for being agreeable, easy to manage, and moldable, we mistake compliance for good mental health. Amanda Bynes didn't have a choice. The audience thought they were watching a girl thrive, but what they were actually watching was a persona being carefully held in place. So when the cracks appeared, it felt sudden, random, out of nowhere, but it wasn't. The signs were there. We just didn't know what we were looking at. We didn't know what to look for. The story never changed. Our angle did. Amanda Bynes didn't suddenly become scattered. She simply stopped fitting the box that she was forced into. And the moment she did that, the narrative was flipped. And this is where timeline really begins to matter. This is where the story usually gets flattened. I remember when Amanda Bynes first started showing signs of erratic behavior. I was a kid. I thought it was a joke, actually. I was like, nah, there's no way. Because I had just started getting into Amanda Bynes movies, actually, funnily enough, when everything started to go viral online, all the tweets and the erratic things that she was saying. And I had just finished watching, what was it, Snow White? It was like a spin-off of Snow White. I can't remember the name of the movie right now. And so when I looked, Sydney White, when I looked at Amanda Bynes' tweets and I watched the girl on screen, I was so confused. I thought she was trolling, for real. I didn't think it was real. I thought she was fine and that she was just faking it. People talk about Amanda Bynes like her life suddenly flipped overnight. Like she jumped from fine to not fine in 0.5 seconds. But when you walk through her life, it's a pressure cooker building. Amanda Bynes begins working professionally at 7 years old. 7. She'd been on the planet for 7 years. 7. Doing things that adults at 37 couldn't do. Commercials, theatre, comedy clubs. By 10, she's performing at the Laugh Factory, stand-up in front of a live studio audience and killing it. By 12, she's on television every week as a part of a cast. But by 13, she has her very own show.
I'm Amanda's biggest fan.
From the very beginning, her life was organized around adult systems. Schedules, feedback, performance. Someone is always telling her where to stand, what to say, how her line could land better next time. And it works. She's praised constantly, not just for her talent, but for her composure, for being so professional and for being so mature. Pro tip, don't you ever call a child mature. Don't you ever. Don't do it. It's not fair. That praise, it teaches someone very early that in order to maintain stability, in order for me to feel safe, in order for people to like and accept me, I must always be composed. I must always do what they want me to do. I must be who they want me to be, or else they won't think I'm mature, or else they won't think I'm capable, and maybe I'll lose everything. That's a lot of pressure to put on a child. The Amanda Show became her life. Weekly sketch comedy, live studio audiences, multiple costume and persona and identity changes every single week. Do you know what it takes to shift from sketch to sketch? Every single, like multiple different characters in one show in front of a live studio audience. There is no downtime. There's no break in between identities. You hop into this one, you run off the stage, you get changed, and you come back on as someone else completely different. It's bright, it's fast, and it was successful, but it was also relentless. The same traits rewarded again and again and again, with no downtime in between. I have to emphasize that. Humor, elasticity, agreeableness. And that version of Amanda became the safest one for her to inhabit. And so by her late teens, she transitions to primetime TV and blockbuster films, the stage where most child stars seem to struggle. But Amanda was thriving. Movies, sitcoms, red carpets, press tours. She was framed as the rare success story because we know now, especially, what has happened to most of the child stars. Look at the state of them, but not Amanda Bynes. You see, the system is not the system. It's each individual child. There's something wrong with them. Because look at Amanda Bynes. She's fine. But realistically, during this time, something quieter was happening. Amanda was becoming really uncomfortable watching herself on screen. She was becoming more and more and more insecure about her looks. She was using Adderall and smoking just to get through it all. She spoke about becoming uncomfortable watching herself on screen, and she was embarrassed knowing that earlier versions of herself could be seen publicly and that they would always exist publicly. When nothing you do will ever disappear, you don't grow the same way. You learn to manage. And so she continues working, but the work begins to feel heavier. Due to her poor self-concept and low self-esteem and the Amanda Bynes was slowly beginning to spiral. And so when in her early 20s she began pulling away, dropping out of projects, stepping back from acting, everyone thought, oh, this successful, beautiful woman decided that she wants to take a break indefinitely from acting. She's deserved it. She's worked her ass off. She's worked so hard all her life. We support you. Go, Amanda, go. And it looked like a clean choice. But Amanda Bynes, who had lived a structured life, call times, check-ins, a rigid schedule, 12-hour days, back to back to back to back, with barely any downtime, now has a completely free schedule. No one telling her what to do, where to be, where to go. She's completely independent and has her own free schedule. She's left her parents' home and is now isolated in hotel rooms, smoking pot and taking Adderall relentlessly, while trapped in thought loops about her self-concept, about her not feeling good enough, about her not knowing who she was, because she had always, from 7 years old, been told who to be. With no call times, no scripts, no one telling her what comes next, and after years of constant work, without that structure, her behavior became more visible. Legal issues and very erratic social media posts. I said this before, I really thought she was trolling. I was like, no, it's not Amanda Bynes. Like, my Amanda Bynes would never say that. Like, she I don't know what she's doing. Maybe she wants attention. I don't know. I was a kid. I just thought it was weird. I thought she was just I thought she was joking. Until the tweets began to get more and more disturbing. The same public who barely noticed her withdrawal and isolation now began paying very close attention to her behavior. This time, there was no character for Amanda to hide behind. And by 2013, her struggles could no longer be managed privately. She was put on psychiatric holds. The public concern, they were mocking her. There was no concern. There wasn't any concern. At that time, there was no concern. Everyone thought it was so funny that she had gone off the deep end. And, oh, the Amanda Bynes who was so good and so composed and so bright. Look at her. She's nuts. She's crazy. Ha, 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 ha. Let's all laugh. Let's all laugh. Eventually, she was placed into a conservatorship by her parents and structure reformed. With the return of routines and boundaries, her behavior seemed to calm down to the outside world. It seemed to calm down, but the problem wasn't fixed and the story wasn't resolved. She was just contained again. And once you see that clearly, the next question becomes unavoidable, because Amanda Bynes' story doesn't explain just one life. It reveals a pattern we see with child stars again and again and again and again, and yet they keep pushing these kids into acting. Obviously, we need children in, well, I don't think we really need children in film, but obviously children have been in film for a long time. But there seem to be no regulations, no safety nets, and no structures in place to keep those children safe and mentally well. These children are not growing up well, they're growing up stunted and managed. Which means the real question might not be what happened to Amanda Bynes. It might be, what kind of system are we putting these kids into that produces the same result so seamlessly and so effortlessly every single time? And once you take a close look at that system, Amanda's story stops being unusual. It simply begins to look inevitable. And that's where the story gets much bigger.